To AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Health Ministry mulls mandatory COVID-19 jabs for certain industries, including health and education workers. And we look at Pantau Kuasa, a platform to track political appointments in federal statutory bodies. That's coming up. The Health Ministry is mulling to make mandatory COVID-19 vaccination for those employed in health, security, education and services sector. Its Minister, Khairi Jamaluddin, said measures mandating COVID-19 vaccines for the entire population is the final proposed initiative currently being considered by the Ministry.
Apart from the proposed use of the Prevention and Control of Infectious Disease Act 1988 to mandate vaccines for the whole Malaysian population, Khairi said the ministry was currently looking into several alternatives to increase the vaccination rate further. However, Khairi noted that these suggestions must be tabled and deliberated by the cabinet first before they are implemented. Presently, he also said legal actions against individuals found to be inciting others to reject vaccines can be enforced through existing laws such as the Penal Code and Sedition Act. The COVID-19 vaccination remains voluntary in Malaysia, but authorities have increasingly made full vaccination a requirement to regain many of the freedoms previously curtailed as part of efforts to control the pandemic locally.
The World Bank has revised Malaysia's economic growth forecast to 3.3% in 2021, down from the 4.5% forecast in June. It said this was due to ongoing lockdown, increased precautionary behaviour and subdued labour market conditions. However, the bank said the external sector will continue to provide support to the economy, especially in the exports of electrical and electronic goods and medical rubber gloves. But the momentum depends on resurgence of COVID-19 cases in advanced economies and in China. Meanwhile, the number of Malaysians living below the national poverty line of 42 ringgit per person per day was expected to decline gradually. However, the pace and trajectory of recovery depend on the national COVID-19 immunization program and the effectiveness of pandemic containment measures. The Travel Bubble Initiative for Pulau Tioman and Genting Highlands, which was slated to begin on October 1st, has been postponed to a later date. For now, only Pahang residents are allowed to visit these tourist destinations, subjected to strict SOPs. Pahang Tourism General Manager Kamaruddin Ibrahim said the decision was made following the Prime Minister's announcement that tourism destination and islands will be allowed to operate again and interstate travel permitted on the condition that 90% of the adult population is fully vaccinated. Earlier, Tourism, Arts and Culture Ministry has suggested that after Langkawi Island, 3 more destinations will be open to tourists through the Travel Bubble Initiative, namely Genting Highlands, Tioman Island and Malacca. As for Pangko, Perak Tourism Committee Chairman Datuk Noli Ashilin said November 1st will remain as the set target date to reopen Pangko to fully vaccinated tourists. The Ministry of Finance has confirmed the extension for the second time the exemption period for freight forwarders to meet the requirement of 51% Bumiputra equity participation to December 2022. Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said this was to allow peneraju agenda Bumiputra or Teraju to further review the policy. He said this is done to improve the industry's efficiency, increase productivity and maintain low costs while taking into account interests of all stakeholders. Federation of Malaysian Freight Forwarders said the rule initially to be enforced by end of this year disadvantages local international integrated logistics services. They argued the problem was the struggle to find Bumiputra companies willing to buy their shares. Under a 2018 review of the regulations, local logistic companies whose licenses were registered before 1976 did not have a Bumiputra equity requirement, while a 30% quota was then imposed on those registered between 1976 and 1990. A 51% Bumiputra requirement was required for licenses registered after 1990, the year the Bumiputra equity policy was first implemented. However, integrated international logistics service providers do not need to have any Bumiputra equity then. The Customs Department has been singled out for having recorded the highest amount of leakage and improper payments under the Auditor General's report. Among the issues flagged involve the EU customs system worth over 397 million ringgit, which has yet to be completed since the project began in October 2013. According to the Public Accounts Committee, the government had paid out almost 273 million ringgit for a new customs system that was never delivered. Auditor General Datuk Nik Azman Nik Abdul Majid said the project was given extensions 5 times, but it remains incomplete until today. EU Customs System project was supposed to replace the Custom Information System, which had been in use since 1995. PAC Chairman Wong Kah-Wo said the committee would summon the Finance Ministry and Customs Department to explain the leakages detected from the EU Customs System. The Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs has launched an online platform, Pantau Kuasa, designed to track political appointments in federal statutory bodies in Malaysia. The aim is to capture the extent of politicians who were appointed to the boards of state-owned enterprises and to create greater public awareness while demanding for more accountability. Nur Zulaika Azmi from Ideas is here to talk about the initiative.
You see politicians that did not win in the elections, or they were given, they were rewarded with these appointments instead, into state-owned enterprises, into GLCs or federal statutory bodies. So sometimes these appointments, you can see a justification for it, but sometimes you see random people, you don't see any qualifications being appointed as board of directors. I think the value of this website is really the data and how it is visualized. So, by using the visualization, people can compare, how big are appointments in the different administrations, and people can easily compare which political parties, for example, has more appointments. Is there a trend?
The Pantau Kuasa website tracks political appointments made in Malaysian FSBs between 2015 to 2021 under the Barisan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan and Perikatan Nasional administrations. It will later be expanded to track appointments in government-linked companies under the next phase of the initiative.
For the government and also policymakers, I hope this sends a positive signal that we do care about who is being appointed and we do see what is happening. So this will make them more aware and also push them to continue with those policy reforms for oversight of appointments into statutory bodies. And I hope people who do use the platform, we have a button where you can submit a report or your recommendations. So just know that we do have plans to expand the platform further, and we want to know how it will be useful for your research, for example, as a public user, how it can be more useful for you to understand this topic better.
We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
She thought she owned everyone.
Why are you speaking?
I think you licked me. But there's something about poetic justice that's just so poetic.
What was your name?
Cruella. You must hate her.
She has made it me or her.
Ayuh keluarga Malaysia, kita bulatkan tekad dan bersatu hati untuk terus memelihara serta mempertahankan kedaulatan negara. Sebagai keluarga Malaysia.
Welcome back. Japan has decided to end all COVID emergency measures when they expire on Thursday, as infections in the country start to slow. With the lifting, Japan will be out of an emergency state for the first time in nearly 6 months. The government plans on easing restrictions gradually, with the governors of each prefecture deciding on which antivirus measures should remain and what should be lifted. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, however, said that restrictions imposed on bars and restaurants will be eased in phases to avoid a resurgence in cases. New daily cases in Japan have steadily fallen over the past month, and nearly 60% of the population is fully vaccinated. The Philippines has approved COVID-19 vaccine for children as young as 12. Inoculating children is seen as a key step towards reopening schools in the Philippines, which is one of the few countries in the world to have kept them shut since the start of the pandemic. The government recently announced plans for a pilot reopening of 120 primary and high schools, but few details have been released. Government spokesman Harry Roku said children will be allowed to receive the Pfizer or Moderna jabs from next month. Vaccination drive is also being widened to include all adults not previously prioritized for shots. Rodrigo Duterte's government has been under criticism over a slow vaccine rollout, with just over a quarter of the adult population fully vaccinated, nearly 7 months after the first doses were delivered. North Korea fired a suspected ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan today, its third weapons test in just over 2 weeks. The action is in violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions, but Pyongyang insisted the country had the right to test its weapons.
The test happened as North Korea's UN ambassador Kim Song said no one could deny Pyongyang's right to self-defense and to test weapons. He also called to the US to give up its hostile policy towards Pyongyang. Earlier this month, Pyongyang test-fired both ballistic and cruise missiles. But just several days ago, Kim Yo-jong, sister of Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, had also expressed willingness to engage in talks with the South. Japan's PM Yoshihide Suga said the country has stepped up vigilance and surveillance, while South Korea has also ordered thorough analysis into intentions behind the launch. North Korea has repeatedly accused the South of double standards over military activities. South Korea recently tested its first submarine-launched ballistic missile, which it said was needed as a deterrence against North Korea's provocations.
Britain has put the military on standby to deliver fuel to service stations after a shortage of tanker drivers forced some service stations to close last week. This has triggered a state of panic buying that left thousands of fuel pumps dry across the UK. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government said up to 150 military tanker drivers are prepared to deliver fuel to service stations. The surge in demand came amid fears a driver shortage would hit supply. The UK is estimated to be short of more than 100,000 lorry drivers, causing problems for a range of industries including food suppliers and supermarkets in recent months. Tens of thousands of EU nationals have left trucking jobs and other occupations in the UK due to Brexit. The government announced a series of emergency measures to address the fuel crisis, including issuing temporary work visas for up to 5,500 foreign truck drivers and suspending competition law to allow suppliers to deliver fuel to rival operators. 4 people were seriously injured in an explosion in an apartment building in the Swedish city of Gothenburg. The explosion occurred in the early hours. Swedish police are investigating whether an explosive device was placed at the scene. At least 25 people were taken to hospital and hundreds evacuated from the apartment block. The cause of the explosion is still unknown, but emergency services ruled out a gas leak. Malaysia has pledged to become a carbon-neutral country by 2050, alongside other environmental targets. Are they too ambitious or not ambitious enough? Tonight on Consider This, we speak to our guests about the 12 Malaysia Plan's green goals. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news update on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. I'm Farhana Sheikh. We'll see you again.
Anda takkan terlepas perlawanan dengan Astro Go.